Hi everyone, welcome back. I know it's been quite a while since my last video and there's a couple of really good reasons for that. One of them is I spent 6 weeks taking an RV trip across the American West and photographing some of our nation's most extraordinary national parks. There will be a video for that in the near future. In addition to that, I actually moved across country from my former home in Colorado to the Boston area. So a lot has been in flux in the last few months, but now I'm all situated in my new home. It's time to return to a normal video schedule. As I mentioned in my 28mm prime video, the 28mm full frame equivalent focal length is my favorite focal length for general purpose photography. It's the lens I would have welded to my camera if I could. Now, while a common field of view for smartphone cameras, it hasn't really gotten the same kind of love as the 24 and 35mm prime lenses have for interchangeable lens camera systems. Up until this point, my favorite lens for any system was the Nikon or Nikon 28mm f2.8 AIS lens. In the digital world, I've transitioned entirely to the Fuji X system. I shoot with the Fuji XT3 and XT3 currently. I love the film style ergonomics, the fact that you can use knobs to change things like shutter speed and ISO on the fly. Having an aperture ring on most of the lenses is really amazing. Now, something that was lacking for me was a sharp, fast, medium wide-angle lens. There is an older style 18mm f2 lens, and that sort of premiered with the dawn of the X system. However, that lens is optically not like incredible. It's an older design, and while it is very small, being an f2 lens on an APS-C sensor, you're not really going to have that sort of isolation that you would get with a faster lens. In addition to that, there's also the 16mm f1.4. And while people love that lens, and I was very tempted to go for that, it's also 16mm on an APS-C is equivalent to about 24mm, so it's a little bit too wide for the kinds of photography that I like to do generally. So I was really waiting for something that was right in that 18mm range, and finally Fuji did it. So in this review, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experiences with the 18mm f1.4 over the last year and a half, the pros, the cons, and whether it's worth the premium that it demands. So let's dive in. One of the reasons I switched to Fuji is the build quality of the XT bodies. The 18mm 1.4 follows suit with its solid, mostly metal construction. While not as small and light as my 35mm f2, the 18mm is fairly lightweight and balances well on my XT2 and XT3. I have the standard pedal-shaped hood, but am very tempted to pick up the metal square hood that Fuji offers as a companion. The lens is weather sealed and bears the WR or weather resistant label, which means it can handle a downpour if paired with a weather sealed body, like the XT series. Like all of my favorite Fuji lenses, this has a marked aperture ring, with stops at each end, and has an auto setting if you go narrower than f16. The ring has a tactile feel to it, which I like, but it's slightly easier to turn by accident than I'd prefer. The 35mm f2 is a little better in this regard. Unlike the older 16mm 1.4, which uses a focus clutch mechanism to switch from manual to autofocus, this one allows you to grab the focus ring at any time to manually adjust focus. The focus ring is well damped and mostly smooth. You can feel a very minor vibration when making huge focus changes, but nothing I'm concerned about. Moving on to image quality, I found the 18mm f1.4 to be exceptionally sharp throughout most of the frame, even when wide open. You can stop down to f2.8 or f4 for clinical sharpness, but I have no qualms using this wide open. This is what you're paying for with a fast lens, and it performs beautifully here. Fuji cameras are known for their color science and film simulations, but you need good optics and lens coatings to have a solid foundation to work with. The 18mm captures rich, vibrant color and stunning contrast even when shot wide open. It's a little more challenging to get creamy out of focus blur or bokeh with an APS-C sensor, but with the right subject to background distance, you can achieve some really lovely separation and isolation. There is a very minor cat's eye shape to the out of focus highlights near the edges of the frame, but nothing out of bounds for a moderate wide angle. One of the most useful characteristics of this lens is its close focusing ability. It can focus up to 7.9 inches or 20 centimeters away. You won't get the sort of ultra-wide effects achieved with a wider lens, but landscapes have a grounded realism in perspective. Travel is the lifeblood of a versatile lens like this, and it comes along with me every time I leave the house with my camera. The not too wide, not too narrow perspective means I'm rarely wanting for my other lenses. Portraits capture a little more of the environment, a little more context. The distortion is well controlled, and a wide aperture means I can still isolate my subject. Food photography is one of my favorite uses of this lens. With its close focus ability, you can fill the frame and capture every little detail. So what do I think of this lens? Is it worth the premium that Fuji's asking for it? In short, the Fuji 18mm f1.4 is sharp, well built, has beautiful color rendition, contrast, and bokeh, especially for a lens on this format in a moderately wide angle. I'm a little biased as this is my favorite focal length, but I'm thrilled that Fuji have come up with a world-class 28mm prime lens that, while on the expensive side, is an amazing value. The Fuji 18mm f1.4 comes with my highest recommendation. In fact, I like the lens so much, I'm filming this video with it right now. I hope you've enjoyed this review and found some value in it. If you have, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment in the comments down below. Let me know what some of your favorite Fuji lenses are, and if you'd like me to take a look at them. I'd love to hear from you. For those of you who've been patiently waiting for my next video, thank you for your patience and support, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until next time.